My name is Brian Perkins, and I'm really excited to be here because one of the big things is that this forces me to try to summarize what I've been working on for the last year, or perhaps my entire life, I guess. And the One Sings program is sort of an all-encompassing attempt for me to reconcile all the music that I like and all the social movements and all the interactions between people and the sense of community. So all of these things, and last night I was thinking, how do I summarize this? So we'll see how well I do. There's a there's a package of information with starting with the song Somalia Toso there, and please grab that. I'll refer to that. So I've been working for the last year in the Integrated Arts Academy, and my approach has been on Thursday and Friday. I teach 6 different classroom groups of kindergarten through 2nd grade. On Thursday morning, I go in with a general idea of what I'm going to accomplish, and by Friday, last session, I have it totally worked out. Unfortunately, this is Thursday first session, so if we keep doing this, we'll have it all fine-tuned. But what I start with is a gathering song, and we'll start with the gathering song, and then we will take it from there and hopefully cover what needs to be covered. And here is a song that I learned from Ella Jenkins.
Oh, yeah.
And here is a picture of Ella Jenkins. It's very important picture. And the song is, you sing a song, and I'll sing a song, and we'll sing a song together. You sing a song, and I'll sing a song in warm or wintry weather. And that's it. You sing a song, and I'll sing a song, and we'll sing a song together. You sing a song, and I'll sing a song in warm or wintry weather. And that pretty much sums up the One Sing program. And so the participatory aspect of it with the kids is that everyone chooses somebody in the room from whom they would like to learn a song. And so when you say you, point to anybody, and I, point to yourself, and then you can express warm or wintry weather if you like. 1, 2, point to a neighbor. You sing a song, and I'll sing a song, and we'll sing a song together. You sing a song, and I'll sing a song in warm or wintry weather. Now, Ella Jenkins, who is an outstanding creator and singer of children's songs, she goes through a bunch of different verses on this song. But we just use it in the context of the One Sings program to get things going, to give kids a sense of, we're at it again, here we go, and to give them a sense of collectively engaging in the music. And then we dig in for more material after that. But every single class, we start with that, and they basically expect it. Mm-hmm. And then we've moved into where the kids actually start the song themselves. And hopefully at some point, I just leave. And then they're fully authorized. But there's a teaching, some very strong teaching value expressed in that. It's kind of obvious. But this is just a picture from the very beginning. The idea, an old person with great music. And that pretty much sums up the relationship of folk music. A tradition bearer, or in this case, a woman who created the song just out of her own experience, who has something for you as a kindergartner through a 2nd grader, something that you can value, something that makes your life richer. So every step of the way, we're trying to get these kids to understand that they have awesome musical traditions, and that the people around them, particularly the elder people and the members of their family and community, have awesome musical traditions which they should access, and which will make their life more rich and a better place. So how we started out. The Integrated Arts Academy is a school formerly known as the Wheeler School, or still known as the Wheeler School. About 1.5 miles, 2 miles that way, in the north end of Burlington. It's a historical school, neighborhood school, built in 1905, thereabouts, and it was a school which has served the north end, which has been basically where the immigrants go when they reach Burlington. And there has always been a large Quebecois and Franco-American community within that neighborhood, Irish-American, normal kind of New England mixture. And also a particularly significant Jewish community, which was in that neighborhood. And I found that to be particularly interesting. So we did some neighborhood commemorations in a street band that I was part of, and we produced this, which is just to reflect the sense of the past and the present. I just quickly cobbled this together. And one of the reasons that I had this on myself when we were walking around the neighborhood commemorating a very important event was in order to amuse the Nepali speakers and with my bad translation, and but also to express how the Yiddish language was the language spoken within the neighborhood about 80 or 100 years ago. French language was always spoken, and currently there's a large Nepali population, as well as Somali, Bhutanese, and a number of other immigrant groups. So this was expressing my sense of the tradition within the neighborhood. I brought this, after using this in this procession, I brought this onto the playground at the Integrated Arts Academy. So kids, kindergarten through 5th grade were there. And as soon as I brought this onto the playground, kids just ran up and said, "Oh, I know that. Oh, I know that. Oh, I know that." So we have kids who know the Hebrew characters, and kids who know French, and a lot of Nepali speakers. So it is very much the active cultural mix of our neighborhood, and I think that is absolutely what makes me so happy. I live a block and a half from this school, so it's an absolutely wonderful thing. Okay, so I guess with that sort of introduction to collective singing and to the sense of the neighborhood, why don't we just do a go-around and everybody can express what their experience working with kids and in classrooms and their relationship to the classroom experience, so that I can have a sense of what people bring to the group. And so I'm Brian. I'm a folk singer, folk performer, private music teacher, and my engagement with the elementary school population is, first of all, having a daughter who's now 15 who came up through the school system. And that has given me a lot of insight, which has been very valuable. But also, in the last year, I've been working in a residency at the Integrated Arts Academy, doing a folk singing curriculum. And under the leadership of Bobby Riley, who is the principal at IAA.
Principal of the Integrated Arts Academy, and just a big push that we've had is to embrace and help us embrace as a community the diversity that we have, is partnering with organizations such as Young Tradition and other arts organizations in the community to celebrate that diversity, but also connect it to our curriculum and how we operate as an art school and the community in whole. So bringing that into the classroom and connecting it to the content standards and really helping it be a form of expression and how students learn.
Hi, my name's Ethan. I grew up at WCS and CBU. My musical experience was mostly classical or choral and a little bit of musical theater. And I went to school at Wesleyan University, which had a really amazing ethnomusicology program. Got exposed to South Indian music, Eastern European scenes. and then spent some time in South Asia. Was not expecting to come back to Vermont. I found myself here this last December. Started substitute teaching at Shelburne Community School and at CBU, and know Chris Dorman at the Music for Sprouts program over at Bread and Butter. I've been working with him, so I'm like a very, 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 very fledgling music person just here to sort of learn from you all and see what's happening.
I'm Judy Kleinmott. I also work at the Integrated Arts Academy as an integrated arts coach, and I sort of do that weaving and networking. I am a visual arts teacher by training and an elementary certified teacher, but and I had really very little music training as a child and as an adolescent, as a college student. But anyway, I absolutely adore music, and I feel like my job is to find as many opportunities for our students to experience music, because I think it's incredibly powerful. And as a matter of fact, it's so powerful, in fact, that the federal government just recently reduced new standards for students, and music is considered one of the core academic subjects.
Right on.
So that's sort of cool. So anyway, that's my relationship to music, and I have 2 children, and I sing all the time with my children. I make up everything I sing because I don't have a big repertoire, but I've been learning lots of songs from Brian.
I'm Nancy Bove, and I was an event planner for the city of Burlington, and that's how I know Mark and Young Tradition. Retired now, so my own personal music experience is just hymns from being raised in the Deep South. But I sing those in the shower.
Hi, I'm Laura Chris. I think you've heard a little bit about me already, but I also teach. I teach fiddling in some schools in the Montreal area, and always looking for new ideas.
I'm Dana Whittle, and I'm a performer, a trad performer, but I moved from Vermont to Quebec 20 years ago, and my kids all kind of became musicians. In fact, I just met my daughter crossing the border to go play at Highgate High School with her band.
Oh, great.
Because of Mark, probably. And I'm not officially a teacher, but I teach in camps, and I often teach singing, working with having the kids compose. So, and I guess I've transmitted music to me. So.
I'm Ann Pierce, and I'm volunteering here for the day, and I'm a singer with a couple community groups and a hospice choir and shape note singing, in addition to contra dancing and lots of other pursuits in the traditional music world.
I'm Becky Eno. I grew up with a mother who was constantly singing, and so I just sang all the time. And my academic training is as a reading and language arts specialist. I haven't used that much in my career, but I'm currently the academic counselor at Castleton University, and we're seeing a great influx of new students from the Burlington area, many of whom are Somali, Bhutanese. Anyway, it's a growing population, and one of my roles at Castleton has been teaching ESL, ELL. So I have a lot of contact with those students, and and I love music, so I always am interested in different cultures, music, and people's musical experiences. And I just think, and in teaching, I also teach in the Upward Bound program at Castleton. In the summer, I teach literature courses primarily, and I always weave music into that because I think music's probably one of the best ways to get students interested in literature and kind of the historical aspects of literature. Anyway, I'm excited about today.
So I'm Henry Chapin, and I was a transplant to Vermont some years ago and cut my teeth as a music teacher in Middlesex and Worcester and Calais and East Montpelier as a music teacher just by learning it by seat of the pants. And was also a traveling artist through the Vermont Council on the Arts. And then I transplanted myself out and back to where I was born, which is New York City, Manhattan Island, which is where I stay these days. I don't really feel like I live there, but I stay there. I am no longer a music teacher, but I'm a dance master. Mostly the work I do is with dance these days, but singing dances. So the perspective that I could bring, my partner's giving a workshop later on, Betsy, so I get to come along, which is great, to see Mark again after years. I'm doing work with the New York City Public Schools, an organization in crisis. And I work with a lot of Latino kids and African immigrants and privileged white people who live in New York who are looking for the public school or the private school. I have a foot in both worlds. And so there's some, I might be able to bring a perspective from the city up here. And it's great to be back and wonderful to be with Mark and Mary again for the day. This morning I was thinking mostly about the fact that when I was raised in the Metropolitan Opera House and in Carnegie Hall, and with all of the high stakes, very high stakes classical music that was my parents' and my grandparents' background. And it took me, I'm still figuring this out, sort of shedding the baggage of that, to be able to understand how opening the talking about a session was, what is this, what is participatory music, so. That's me.
I'm Danielle Smith, and I currently am teaching music at Heinsberg Community School, preschool through 8th grade. A lot of kids a day, and a new show every 40 minutes. And then in the summers, I teach at the Flynn, doing musical theater program with the high schoolers. And in my spare time, I text all the growing up kids who have graduated from those programs who have their hearts broken in college. They don't stop. They just get, it's so funny, I stay the same age. But they that's somebody else's joke I just took from whoever I was sitting with earlier.
Really funny.
But I am a transplant from the musical theater world. I'm director, choreographer, all growing up, and then I sort of fledgling musical, just started doing it, and I landed in the right place. It was more about being in that place with those people that I had already established relationships with, making theater, and then there was an opening as in the music program, and it's right next door, but it's been a quite interesting path, working full-time and jumping through all those hoops to add the music to my license, which was very exciting. I can talk to you about all the ways you can do that if anybody was switching or adding. And along the way, I've taken conversational Solfege with Betsy, and all of this I found the music community so welcoming to, I feel like a foreign exchange student sometimes, because as a theater person, when we take breaks, why don't you people sit on the floor? I don't understand. Everyone's always in a chair. But the joy every day of sharing music with the littlest ones I just had a middle school concert last night, and I'm loosening strings to let them choose their own material and how they want to present it, and less of what I think should be happening, and it was really sweet. And that's so combining what is traditional, what is their traditional, and what is my traditional, and what is merging and changing in an interesting way right now. And I'll stop talking about myself.
I'm Emily Addison, and I'm from Ottawa, Ontario. I have a background in teacher education, working in teacher education programs, and have always had a passion for traditional dance and music, not so much song, although I love listening to it, I'm just not myself, a huge singer and have a repertoire. And I'm here on behalf of CDSS. I'm working on how CDSS can better support the Canadian traditional dance, music, and song community. And part of that is their initiative to try to reach out to teachers in classrooms and get not just the artist in residence piece, getting the music in, but actually getting the teachers in the schools using traditional arts in schools. So that's kind of why I'm here and trying to connect with people and find out what others are doing. So please come talk to me if you're interested in talking about that subject generally, in addition to the Canadian context, which a few of us are from Canada. So.
I'm John Patterson, and I don't teach anybody, really. And I'm basically here simply as a volunteer because I admire what Young Tradition does greatly. Long time ago, I studied folklore for a while, but that was very long ago. So I was especially fascinated in the whole discussion of collaborative versus presentational art, and I just love what Young Tradition does and what I've seen about what you guys are doing. You know, I live in a co-housing community in Burlington, and love. So I'm just happy to be here.
Great. Okay, so let me make sure everyone's got a copy of this packet, which starts with the sommelier toast.
And if anyone's cold, there's a heater that I can turn on, so if we're getting cold as the sun goes down, and the clouds are coming.
So I'm going to just run through a whole bunch of things right now, some tactics, some things that have been tried, some philosophical issues of choosing repertoire, and hopefully we'll be able to put it all together in a coherent package. Otherwise, talk to me later. Okay, so Danielle, you just finished a concert last night. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I've got this coming Tuesday, the 6th grade jazz band at the middle school.
Oh, bless your heart.
I lead that, and so I'm kind of sweating that. Is the rhythm section going to completely fall apart like it did last year?
Maybe.
Okay, so 6th grade jazz band at the middle school. The middle school, this is a big town, so the elementary schools feed into 2 middle schools. Kids from different neighborhoods. The Hill District, the Old North End, the South End, okay? And so who has access to the arts programming? In this case, you know, brass band, piano, drums, etc. Who stays for the after-school program? Okay, so show of hands in the 6th grade jazz band. Who's from Edmonds, the Hill District School? A bunch of hands go up. Who's from the Champlain School? A bunch of hands go up. Who's from Barnes or Integrated Arts Academy? One hand goes up. Okay, so this says something. It says that kids from certain schools have the resources and have somehow the capital which allows them to follow through with the music programs later on. So I'm confronted with this in the 6th grade, and it's like, where do you go from here? And what you have to do, of course, is go back to kindergarten and or preschool and start working with the issues. In terms of arts programming, I've learned from Betsy Nolan and from Bobby that the most important thing for continuity in arts programming for kids, the 3 things, particularly after-school programming, the 3 things that are most important are transportation, and transportation. After the programs end, the after-school programs, I'm done, just done. Bobby Riley springs into action. Who needs a ride home? Who needs a ride? Betsy Nolan, likewise. Who needs a ride back to their neighborhood? And more often than not, they're the ones who are actually doing the driving. Okay, so access to arts programming requires a lot of things which you wouldn't automatically assume being, where we are now. We think, how did we get to where we are? But I guess the real question is, what's keeping other people, other kids, from getting to the place we are now? And sometimes it's just transportation. Okay, that's one random issue.
It's not random.
It's
Pretty central.
Pretty central.
And I've often hit that who can pay for having an instrument?
Yeah.
Who rents, who can have one that's broken and fixed?
But even valuing having it and then having the structure, once you have that at home, it doesn't matter if you have it, if there's not a supportive way to practice or play it or
Right.
be with the music. Sorry, keep going.
No, this is extremely important. And this is workshop topic for a whole workshop on its own, because this is so important. Okay.
I've been as an example, we have a petting zoo that is stored at the Integrated Arts Academy that we also use the loan program. So kids can sign out an instrument for a year at no cost. And the instruments are donated to us for them at very low cost. So it's one way to go about doing that. It's fairly inexpensive to get started. It's a little bit of a challenge to manage, but and we've never lost an instrument in 3 or 4 years. And they go out for a year, they come back. It's amazing. Doable, I guess that's what I'm saying.
Because on loan, there's a certain value right at the top.
Yeah.
It's not just, you're not buying an undershirt. You're actually taking a musical instrument, a carefully made, beautiful home with the responsibility.
Okay, so traditional musicians play music associated with an area. The New England, there was sort of a New England and to a certain extent an American cultural mix that stabilized with the closing down of immigration in about 1920, where immigration was severely restricted at that point. Before then, it was just a massive mix of cultural influences, languages, etc. Stabilized to a certain extent for up until perhaps the 1980s. I'm not exactly sure of immigration policy. But then the floodgates opened again. And and we were back to what America has always been in terms of having folks constantly coming here, bringing their cultural traditions. Okay, so our sense of what is the repertoire that is taught when you're teaching folk singing, it, to a certain extent, stabilized for the middle part of the last century. And we had a bunch of different sort of cultural forms. We had the, let's say the, This Land Is Your Land, If I Had a Hammer kind of folk revival repertoire. And before that, and then going back a little further, I've Been Working on the Railroad, sort of common cultural repertoire that you could pretty much assume that was familiar to people and part of what you were expected to know as an American. Okay, so that repertoire is what we have to consider when we're teaching kids. What do we bring to them? Do we teach I've Been Working on the Railroad? Do we teach This Land Is Your Land? Do we teach, from what repertoire do we gather? And so there are a lot of different ways to approach that. And the One Sings program had to confront that. What are we going to teach? And as Judy mentioned, the kids are going to be singing it. They're going to walk by my house singing the song, so I want to be very careful. And they're going to when your car stopped in traffic. So you want to make sure you're doing the right thing. And so I came up with a repertoire. First and foremost, it was songs that I could actually teach. Being the person who was going to be doing the teaching, I drew upon the traditions that I was familiar with. But then you have to do due diligence and recognize that since the floodgates of immigration are open again, that there are a lot of cultural traditions which you have to respect and affirm in a teaching program in a school like the Integrated Arts Academy. So I guess just looking, and then again, also there is an ideological component to the repertoire, to the standard American repertoire, and in which we're presented a certain depiction of what is the common culture. And if you look a little bit deeper, you find that that's not exactly the way things were. And that there has always been a strong influx of cultural traditions outside of the, this, in our case, the standard Yankee kind of assumption of what it means to be a New Englander, the Scottish, Irish cultural mix, English cultural mix. So in Burlington, just my particular take on that was to look at the history of the school and the cultural traditions represented there. And so I have been doing quite a bit of research, and there's a blue binder giving some of that in very rough form regarding the Jewish community within the Old North End. And there's also, and that's pretty much unrecognized within, it's something that's fairly unique to Burlington, contrasting with the rest of Vermont, and so something that's very special about the Integrated Arts Academy. So working within that school, I feel obligated to express that cultural tradition. Likewise, working with the Integrated Arts Academy, the French-speaking traditions within the neighborhood should be expressed, along with that broad sort of American canon of folk songs. But I want to touch upon some of the other filters with which I decided upon the repertoire that I was going to present. And the really big one, which I just want to mention, is the tradition of minstrel culture and minstrel music. And this was an extremely important style of music from 1850 up until about 1950. And a lot of songs, such as Turkey in the Straw, Old Dan Tucker, Dixie, Camptown Races, Oh Susanna, Buffalo Gals, Shorten and Bread, a lot of songs that are pretty well known are, to a certain extent, part of that minstrel tradition. And so, to a certain extent, some of them are profoundly racist or come out of a tradition which dabbles very much in racist stereotypes. And so if you're teaching within the school system, it sort of is, you're obligated to do your research and find out what's up with these songs. You know, just, is Buffalo Gals a good song to teach, or are there some problems with Buffalo Gals? And so here is a rough worksheet that I came up with regarding minstrelsy and the minstrel tradition. And so I tried to find out what's up with these songs, whether they, and what were the problematic aspects of them. And you see the columns here depict the title of the song, and then questions such as, does the author of the song assume a false racial persona? So minstrelsy was defined to a large extent by white singers and performers performing in blackface, a caricature depiction of African American culture and music. And so a lot of these songs did come right out of the minstrel tradition, and with a false racial persona assumed by the author. And many of them, in various forms, include racist terminology, or dialect lyrics, or racial stereotypes. But it's not clear-cut. It's not as if a song that ever has any association with minstrelsy should never be touched in a school teaching program, because some of them were incorporated into minstrel shows, and so it's a very complex issue. But as a teacher, a person working within this system, you've got to do your homework and make sure you're not just recreating a racist, a racist set of cultural assumptions that, I learned it, so you're going to have to learn it. Mm-hmm. And that's part of what we're fighting against in terms of working with developing curriculum and musical education. So some good food for thought here. And there are some things that you are, kind of surprising twists here. Mm-hmm. Jump down, turn around, pick a bale of cotton. Is that a familiar song to anybody? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I certainly learned it from my family. My family's from Arkansas. But that's in the repertoire of Fannie Lou Hamer. who is the woman who's pretty much responsible for us all singing "This Little Light of Mine, I'm Gonna Let It Shine." And so, and one of the extremely important figures in the civil rights movement, the American civil rights movement of the 1960s. Okay, so it's a complex issue, but that's what we have to work with. Okay, any thoughts or reflections on that?
Yeah, I do, because living in Quebec, it pretty much would exclude about 99% of the songs that exist there, if you're going to be politically correct with what you sing. But I think it's an opportunity to discuss what the meaning of the song was in the context of the time, because in Quebec we're full of songs about, you know, arranged marriages and men doing horrible things to women and killing the babies, and, you know, I mean, and they're sung happily, you know, like a lot of American folk songs are. And I think it's really important for the kids to, because they don't listen to the lyrics analytically. Nobody does. People sing these songs. The first time that Colin Sabwadabak played a show with us, one of our band members' son, and he was probably 11 years old, and we were playing in a public market, and we said, "Oh, Colin, sing a song, you know, why don't you do a song?" Because there was kindergartners coming through and first graders, a big group of kids. So he immediately launched into the song that basically the lyrics translate, you know, I'm not as big and I'm not as long as an Irishman, but a lot harder. But he has no idea what he's singing. It's just a song he heard singing in sung in his family, and he memorized it because he just liked the way the whole thing sounded when people answered the song. And so you don't want to say you can't sing. You know, I mean, we didn't know he was going to sing that, and nobody was shocked either. That was the other thing. No, not one kid was listening to the lyrics of the song. You know, they were just answering the song. But you know, it's something that people bring up, not so much where I live, but I've had relatives who've heard our kids singing what they consider questionable songs in a public festival setting. Why are kids singing that? Because that's what they learn in their family, generation after generation after generation. And it's not a message that, they don't think of it as message, the content of the lyrics, I don't think. So.
Yeah. So very, very important, and that perspective on it is extremely important. So many different ways of looking at that issue of lyrical content. Yeah.
Well, my comment is that any music teacher like yourself, the first thing is you, because you are who you are, and you present yourself. This is me. My family comes from Arkansas. Do you know where that is? These are the songs I learned. And I have a personal theory, which is that any music teacher must follow their passion. So there are music teachers who are total theater gypsies and who love the musical theater. What a great experience. There's a school in New York City I'm aware of that has an English-style town band. So who cares? It happens to be a school on the Upper West Side, and they have English town marching bands because somebody in the school is passionate about people playing alto tubas. And so that's what the kids are going to get. You know, there are other schools where the teacher is an opera teacher, and they're going to learn all about Puccini. Great. You've got to go by your passion to start with. That's where you begin.
Okay. Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you for this, because in my opinion, I think this is the conversation of what this whole idea of young people doing old things. I mean, old things have a tarnish. And this is it. And I think we have a responsibility, yes, to provide the context as you teach it, but then maybe some of them, you know, there are a lot of songs that get forgotten and go away. And there are many of these that I was as for an exchange student in this music world, being sung to or taught, or this is a good one, but I can't do that in good conscience, be a part of passing on. We want to pass on the tradition of what music does well in a beautiful way. And what music does well is institutionalize whatever you're doing.
Right.
And so they're going to be walking down the street singing that song, but they're not gonna be carrying that context with them. They might understand it in that moment, and they might learn it, but they're,
Well, but you could also say that a lot of the things we grew up learning, the nursery rhymes, there's sexual connotations. And nobody ever thinks about that when they're singing it, you know?
Well,
but I think they do.
I think they do, and I'm just thinking, like, I've got a 2-year-old. I'm very careful which nursery rhymes or which songs I'm using because of the message that they innately have in them. And I think having the conversation is one piece, but I think really careful selection of song is really valuable. Like, a lot of the songs on the radio right now I find extremely offensive, and the messaging is not healthy for people. And I think it's also okay to acknowledge that there's lots of older traditional songs that send unhealthy messages about relationships or how you treat other people. And we can't always have the moment to teach that. And it's not that, as you said, everybody's going to be able to internalize that and think about that every time they sing that song and when they present it and talk about it again. Right?
I don't know, my experience collecting songs from people is that they oftentimes don't really understand what the song is about that they're singing, that their grandfather sang. They don't until the moment where I'm saying, okay, I need to write down those words. Then they're like, wait a minute, what do I sing there? And they don't even really understand, like the verses can be reversed because they're not conscious of the story as it's unfolding.
Yeah, and I think the kids, when they're, my middle schoolers, they'll come in and ask to sing a song, and I'm like, do you want me to explain to you why we can't do that song? Or bring me the lyrics, highlight the things you think I'm gonna have a problem with, and then that's the first time they've looked at the lyrics. I think you're right that they don't internalize that, but I think we do, and I think that's part of our responsibility. But I want to hear your songs.
No. This is this is a workshop title. We're going to totally make this a. Here it is.
This also.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm gonna. We've got half an hour to cover everything, so I'm gonna just step on it right now. The lunchtime is going to be great for that discussion. Here's Fannie Lou Hamer. Okay, so we taught This Little Light of Mine, and that obviously an extremely popular song, very fun to sing, and realizing what an amazing story behind why we sing that. It was written in Chicago by a Protestant evangelical group, and then was collected by Zilphia Horton, or learned by Zilphia Horton, who returned back to Arkansas, where she tried to organize the miners at her father's mine and got kicked out of the family. And she went to Highlander, taught it to Fannie Lou Hamer, who taught it to the world. So incredible stories. And for the kids in the school, once again, the idea that this person has great songs. And so just affirming that the person in this picture, and these are kindergarten through second graders, this person has great songs, and what you're singing is a testament to this person's learning a good song and singing it to you. Okay, so always back to one sings is kindergarten through second grade, so a lot of this is on a very basic level. Okay, so playing my Lomax persona here. There's a lot of existing cultural forms within the school, and you don't go in and say, I'm going to teach you. You go in and you say, what are you doing and what works? And so, One Sings program, you just, for the first while, you just put out the tape recorder or whatever it is you record with these days, and you learn the songs that are used in the school. And here's a whole bunch of songs that I collected. Oh, this is a great one. I'm going to embarrass Mr. Bobby here. So songs have different functions, and when my daughter, I heard this one when I was terrified by this one.
Do we have this here with?
No, this is in a lot of material here. This is in my display book, which describes some of the material that I've collected as part of this program. And so this will be available over there. And at some point, I will make it accessible on the internet. The Hall song. Okay, so this song has a function. And it was sung to me by a kindergartner a bunch of years ago in a very sort of dreary voice. Our arms are by our sides, we're standing straight and tall. Our eyes are right in front of us, we're ready for the hall. Okay, so I was about to pull my daughter out of the school system altogether. But it has a function. Okay, we go into the school system and the kids are ready to listen and ready to learn, and that's because of a certain amount of regimentation, like it or not. I didn't particularly like that song.
Good morning, good morning to you. Isn't that the one? Didn't you have to sing that one?
Good morning to you.
Good morning to you. Good morning to you. We're all in our places with sunshiny faces.
Oh, very nice.
It's like it's the same, basically.
Yeah. Okay, so this kind of culture, the particular aspects of it within Integrated Arts Academy are just precious, so you collect them. Okay, so, but in comes a charismatic figure to turn things on their heads. Show me what a first grade line looks like. Clap on 1 and 3. And I collected these, and then they're not part of the repertoire. Show me what a first grade line looks like. Show me what it looks like. Show me what a first grade line looks like. Arms by your side. Okay, so that's a much more fun version. It makes you actually feel like this is great. Standing at the side. Okay, and that was written. That was introduced by Mr. Bobby. And so I heard that and I was like, wait, do it again, sing it. So I'm telling these kids, sing it again. And let me record it. Let me make sure I've got it. Let me learn from you. Okay, wait, do I have it right? Okay, so that's part of the relationship where you're learning from the kids, and they're suddenly saying, why is this person so interested in what we're doing? Maybe it has importance, and so they listen more carefully and try to learn because they realize that they're teachers. And that people care, and that's that relationship of I value what you're saying is very important. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of these. A song about Friday and how I'm actually very enthusiastic that it's Friday because I'm going to learn more. And let me just find. Just a simple teaching song that one of the second grade teachers to deal with the word because. It's a difficult word to spell. So Mary had a little line. B-E-C-A-U-S-E, U-S-E, U-S-E, B-E-C-A-U-S-E, that's how we spell because. Okay, so she identified a problematic word. And she composed a song. I think she composed it. And so that's part of the school culture. And there are a lot of those which I collected. I don't teach them, but I wanted to document them and have them and make sure that I had them so that other teachers could benefit from that. Okay, what I do use though are the little buttons that bump, 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 and the whole class goes bump, bump. And they're ready to listen. No matter what they're doing in this school, if you go bump, 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 the kids all respond and are ready to focus. It's absolutely awesome. Okay, so that's a little musical ritual, and there are a lot of those. The school assemblies, IAA. Yeah, why don't you guys model it?
Okay.
IAA, hello. And it's just repeated, yeah, it's a call and response.
IAA, let's go. It's just a chant, but it's a call and response chant they do every single week.
The best thing is when Rough Francis does it. Rough Francis is a local punk band, and they play at our Kids All Right benefit concert. And sometimes when we're out watching them, I'll see them, and they'll start jamming on the drums with it, and it sounds awesome.
Okay, so what I noticed, and it's absolutely wonderful, school assemblies every Friday, a large group of kids just kind of milling around, and there's a microphone, cordless microphones, and they hand a microphone to a kid. IAA, hello. The school chants back, IAA, hello. Then mic gets handed to the next kid. The next kid says, IAA, let's go. People chant back, IAA, let's go. mic gets handed from kid to kid. Some kids have very weak, hello, hey, hello. Everyone responds back. But that gives kids mic time, gives kids the opportunity to say something and have the entire school respond back.
Yeah.
And that's an affirmation. It is a performing arts focus school, and so that's a really important part of the package. And so just, I didn't have a mic time until I got one at age 16. And I've always been a little nervous because I couldn't, I didn't have the experience when I was a kid. So that's very important. Okay, so moving right ahead, every folk singer is moving in the direction of becoming a cranky artist. We are in the cranky boom. Workshops on crankies. Okay, so I jumped on board. And so just some very accessible crankies and then some slightly different ones. And in that nest there was an egg, the prettiest egg that you ever did see. So we had a specific theme for 1 week, which called upon me to sing the song I learned, the green grass grew all around, and the green grass grew all around. Okay, so how do kids involve themselves with this song, aside from the act of memorizing and repeating back? Wonderful song. Every kid gets just a little piece of copy or paper and the word egg, nest, tree, and they illustrate it, and then you just tape it together, and you have an instant cranky. So in that nest, there was an egg, and in that, the bird, and the green grass grew all around, and the green grass grew all around. So every kid gets to participate, and it's a way of breaking down the pure, singing relationship and making it be an artistic relationship, and also give something to look at. I don't go for I don't use any visual aids other than this because it's so fun. And the feather, and so and there's the end. Okay, so a couple other cranky ideas. I just strung them together. Sorry. Hopefully we'll make it. Yes. Cranky picture. Okay, numeracy. And in a multicultural school, part of the process of we want to affirm the linguistic traditions. We want to affirm the amazing number of possibilities. So this was 10 in the bed, which if anyone's teaching instrumental music, 10 in the bed and the little one said roll up, it's a 1-chord song. Okay, so once you teach the C on the ukulele, then, and everyone, well, a lot of people know 10 in the bed and the little one said roll over, so they're all set. C, 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 C. And so here we have, oh my goodness, what are all these? And this is all 9s, and it's very important to point out that our 9 is an Arabic 9. And this is an Arabic number. And there's another Arabic version of it. And then Hebrew, Nepali, etc. So all ways of saying 9. And you get the conversation going. And so here's the cranky for the numbers of 10 in the bed. Blah, blah, blah. And all, just cut and paste on the internet. And just, the real pitfall of this is pretty successful. Get some conversations going, gives kids an opportunity to say, I know that's what number. So some good affirmation there. The pitfall is that every cultural tradition is tricky, and you have to learn it properly. Otherwise, you're going to make some really dumb mistakes. And the kindergartners are the most eager ones to point out the mistakes that you're making. Okay. Then here we go. Sometimes you learn on the fly. And sometimes you find out amazing things about songs that you thought you knew. So Halloween last year, trying to tie, Halloween is like the high holy day of the kindergarten through 2nd grade set. So what can we do associated with Halloween? Dry bones. Them bones, them dry bones. Okay, so it's a pretty familiar song. And is everyone familiar with that song? Yeah, and so we all know it, and a lot of us, okay, a song about bones. So that's good enough for Halloween. but it's got some problematic aspects. Now hear the word of the Lord. Oh, you know, do we really go there? Hear the word of the Lord. Yeah, so it becomes problematic in some ways. But then you do your research on it, and you find out that Dry Bones was written, actually, this doesn't address the religious thing, by the way, but this is interesting. James Weldon Johnson, one of the leading lights of the Harlem Renaissance, who, as a young man, I believe it was in Florida, wrote Dry Bones. And he wrote it about the story of Ezekiel in the Valley of the Dry Bones. Okay, so this is an African American in the South writing about Ezekiel, and Ezekiel sees this valley full of disparate bones laying out dry, hopeless, and then just hearing the word, these bones sprang together and formed a mighty army. Okay, and that was the Israel, which was totally demoralized and downtrodden, rising up in collective action after hearing the inspirational word. Why would an African American in the South, in the early part of the century, why would this resonate with him? Why would he write this song? This is a song about collective action.
Yeah.
This is a song about organizing.
Fighting back.
Yeah, and so it's all sort of with plausible deniability or artistic vagueness. But this is a song about organizing resistance. Ooh, I could use that. And so I found it to be a very important take on the song. So, and plus it's a Halloween song about bones. The bones connected, the foot bone connects to the ankle bone. And how does it tie in with the curriculum? Okay, Dry Bones, anatomy, cut and paste from the internet, the toe bone. Of course there are about 30 toe bones, but kindergartners accepted at that. And so different, the ankle bone connects to the leg bone. But we sing, now hear the word of the Lord, and I thought I'd it'll go. It's part of the tradition of the author. This is an important part of the tradition of the author, is the religious reference here. As soon as it came out of my mouth, I went, oh, it's not working. And that was reflected by the classroom teacher as well. Now hear the word of the Lord. Okay, this is not really working. What do we do? A first grader, this was a first grade class, said, my family sings, now shake those skeleton bones, instead of, now hear the word of the Lord. Okay, so that works. Halloween, it's drawn from the community. This is his cultural tradition in his family, is to sing, now shake those skeleton bones. We quickly change the lyrics, adapt it, and it becomes the whole, Dry Bones song, but now shake those skeleton bones, and it's a good kinetic expression, for the kids to do. So these are the sort of decisions that have to be made, and the sort of thought process that goes into developing this kind of repertoire. So this was our Halloween cranky, and here's just a little bit more on James Weldon Johnson. This is kind of from my own benefit. These are kids are not really perceiving the nuances of the Harlem Renaissance and the contributions of James Weldon Johnson, but the pure, clear just depiction of this is the man who gave us this song. This is the kind of person who gives you these songs, and this song is about coming together. So, here's so those are the quick and easy crankies, and I found that to be pretty effective. Not like the most amazing technique in the world, but it sort of gives a little bit more texture and interest to the class, so it's not just facing a bunch of kids singing, and there's an element of participation. Okay. Any reflections on that? Is everyone an accomplished cranky artist here already? And let's see. the cultural mix of that the school draws from. I don't have the, Bobby and Judy have got the exact, more accurate representation, but the cultural traditions include Somali Bantu and Nepali, Burmese, Sudanese, Burundian, Vietnamese, and those are the large contingents. Unless tell me if I'm missing any. Yeah, and then there's in Burlington, there's also a significant Tibetan, Bosnian, and Mexican and other Central American country population. But not. I didn't find that those groups to be particularly well represented within the classes that I was working with. So as a folk song collector, Migmar, who I believe is presenting today, he gave us, by way of Mark Sustek, an absolutely awesome Tibetan children's song. And it's just sitting there, 90% like learned and everything. It's a very good one for kids. But there's not I didn't find it to be a top priority because it's not a population that I've sensed within the school. However, Nepali and Somali Bantu, there is a significant population, and so I felt that part of the relationship of collecting songs and affirming the traditions was, and also fostering the educational process, was to collect songs and try to incorporate songs from these traditions. And that was a tremendous challenge for myself because I'm not particularly good at linguistic, learning languages and learning songs. But you've got to do what you've got to do, and there's a lot of false starts, but ultimately you just go around, with the tape recorder and you try to get songs from people. And so here is one example of a song which worked out to a certain extent. And this is Somali Toso, and this is a song in Somali, and it's an important distinction, and this is very, I just find this to be more and more the case. You think, okay, Somali, there's one language. No, there's a bunch of languages. And so there's Bantu, which is kind of mutually comprehensible to Somali speakers. And so most Bantu speakers speak Somali, but not vice versa. But this is a great song. Somali e toso, toso iskutir sadaye, had bakina tagdarane, tagera wiligine. I'll sing it again. Somali e toso, toso iskutir sadaye, had bakina tagdarane, tagera wiligine. Okay, so that's the chorus. And so the point of doing this song is to affirm the relationship that we value your cultural tradition and to incite, to get the conversation going. Okay, one of the questions that was mentioned in by some participant was the question of cultural appropriation. And that's a very, obviously, extremely important issue. My perspective on it is there's a story about the folk revival fiddlers, New Yorkers, every one of them, going down to the Appalachians and finding the old fiddlers. And the old fiddler would say, oh, I don't know anything. And so the trick was, you take out your fiddle as a collector and you play a dreadful version of their tune. And then the old guy says, no, I'll show you how to do it. And then it's going, the relationship is going. Okay, so by humiliating myself and attempting to sing Somali songs, I will at least get the conversation going. And that, to me, from my perspective, is a very important thing. To get that kind of smile of like, okay, keep trying. That's an important part of the relationship. So here's a song, Somali Toso. My across the street neighbor, I recorded it from him. But the nature of the music these days is that there's a version on the internet that everyone refers to and everyone learns from. So it's kind of like there's a totally, you just, everyone says, here's a version of it, and they sing this really garbled version, and then they refer you to the internet. And so that's a tricky thing as a folk song collector to deal with, but it's kind of the reality. And in this song, it's basically there is just one video or one rendition of it that everybody knows.
This is a composed song, though. It's a national anthem. Right?
Yes, it was in 1940s.
47?
Yeah, and it was the very popular song, and then the national anthem for a while. It's no longer the national anthem.
Oh.
So it's it's an interesting song, and the translations, I'm chasing translations around, and there's lots of different lyric sets. So at this point, we just do the chorus. But it is, that has worked out really, really well, this song. And that, kids pick it up a lot faster than I did. So the ability of kids to learn songs in languages not their own is astounding. Okay, goodness. I'm just going to, okay, we're going to really rush through some things right now. So these kids are song leaders, and they don't know it yet. We have to give them the skills to be song leaders. In my teaching, you start teaching the most complicated things, but then, in my private lessons, it all comes down to teaching kids to count to 4 consistently. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it's just, that's where it all has to be. Otherwise, the songs just do not work. And so we've done a lot of counting to 4 in different languages, and teaching kids to lead songs, to start songs. And since we want to give everyone a chance to start a song, we have to have it be a very short song. So here's the song. Ta-da! All right. If you're trying to research the history of songs, try to research the history of ta-da. Okay? It's, how do you even formulate the question? Because these things tend to go back very far. Not to be confused with, we're dealing with kids who are learning to read. This is important, that this word is different from this word. Ta-ta. Okay, ta-ta. Ta-da! So kids can all do that. Now, every kid can start the song. So John, would you count to 4, and then we will all perform this song.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Ta-da! Okay, and so you go around the circle, and everyone starts the song, and they get that experience of, I'm a song leader. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you do it in different languages. You can count in any language you want. Or, if you want to do, I only have 2 potatoes here, but if you want to do 4 potatoes, so we explain potatoes, which is the folk musicians' 4 beats. I'll give you 4 potatoes, and we'll start the song. So the kids are like, potato! And then you have the conversation about the different words for potato. And so, barado, patata, pomme de terre. And the kids can either say 1, 2, 3, 4 in any language, or they can just bonk the potato on the ground. And the whole class goes, ta-da! So it's a way of having kids involved in that sort of rhythmic activity. So that was
Are you doing that in in JK or kindergarten?
Yeah,
or all the way through
K through 2. But we really kind of dug in with the kindergartners on it, where the second graders were pretty good. But it's just eliciting participation, basic ways to elicit participation. And the potato being the nonverbal, if a kid doesn't want to say anything, they can just go bonk, 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 bonk. And sometimes they'll surprise you. All right, just for my own, we can either do Q&A or we can do the, my, trying to here. Why don't you, anybody has any observations on anything, why don't you just say them right now.
I wanted to follow up, you were talking about the valuing, like pulling songs from the traditions that are in the school. But I think of some places that I know, and I think there'd probably be communities in Vermont like this, where it's very white, very monocultures. And so you don't have that variety to draw upon. And I grew up in such a community, and so going off to university and then being exposed to many different cultures, it was a shock. And I kind of feel like music is an opportunity to expose kids to many different cultures, regardless of what's in the school or not. And you can learn to value, like, even if I was a Syrian refugee, and I didn't hear a song from my particular tradition, if I was hearing songs from many different traditions, I would get the understanding that tradition is valued and reflect upon that I also come from a family of traditions. My family also has traditions that are valuable. So I see how it's being valuable to you to pull from the school directly, and that those kids that are hearing their songs are valued. But I think it could also be for teachers in schools to do this much research and find the time to do that. I think it might also be as helpful to have a really great repertoire of songs from various traditions that are well thought out that they could draw upon. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, any reflections on that?
Well, I think one of the things is, I think it's important, I think they're both important, they both have value. I think it's important, what Brian has done is because so often the communities that are now being represented through music or art are often marginalized. So to develop community, you want to feel part of community, you want to be seen by that community and valued by that community. But certainly a Nepali student or a Somalian student learning a Quebecois song, or that's important because it brings value too. But first, to really feel part of something larger than yourself and to feel connected, you want to be represented. And that's what I was talking about earlier when Nepali students saw the Nepali dances. We had some Muslim girls reciting poetry at a meeting the other way. That is a powerful representation to say, I can be a leader too. I can feel connected to my community in a way that I don't see that often.
Right.
And they don't see reflected through the people who are leaders in the community right now. So it's just, they both have value, absolutely. And maybe one comes before the other, I don't know, but it's really important for us that the students said, well, I'm not representing this community, so I feel weird about that. And it doesn't feel great. And so just to create that connection and that authentic connection.
Just to touch back on what we were speaking earlier about potentially controversial or inappropriate words of a song, 'twas ever thus, with musicians always pushing the envelope of what a society, what is accepted in a society. Just think of Bird and Dowland and the lute songs they wrote, about love.
Yeah.
And they were taking the idea of medieval love to a new place by doing that. So we're always in that, and in our experience in New York City, we've gotten in hot water sometimes about a song. And it's because somebody comes to you and has a conversation, and they're explaining to you with their point of view. So it's important, of course, to be open to, oh, I see, so I will change, I will grow, I will learn the song about standing in the halls and develop it and take it in. Oh, you mean that song's important to me? Yeah. And I also think that children are always, what do they want to do? They want to grow up. They want to be grown-ups. So let's play grown-up. Let's pretend we're grown-ups. Because that's how, by pretending to be a grown-up, that's how you become a grown-up. Or an adolescent, or a high school student, or whatever it is. That's how we grow. And that's maybe what the nursery rhymes and the Grimm's fairy tales were all about when they were written down. They were, okay, this is a story about a child, for children, but it's really, this is how we grow. So. I'm only standing up because I don't want to sit anymore.
No, I apologize. my curriculum involved dancing La Bastrang as we did with the K through 2, and that was fabulously successful. But we don't have time for that. Sorry. And plus, I think that Vermont is ethnically and is much more diverse than it gives itself credit for being, and there's nuances to that, and I think the more you go back and start researching, the more you find out the incredible ethnic diversity that does exist, and that's not just in terms of skin tone, but in terms of cultural traditions, Italian and French speaking and Welsh, all the things you wouldn't. So I highly encourage people to do some research to find the uniqueness. But it is work. So and as busy school teachers, sometimes you need something which doesn't take weeks and weeks and weeks. But hopefully people can share some good resources for that. I've got a number of them, but not right at hand, so I'd be happy to talk about that. Okay, so just to wrap up with a particularly fun thing for myself is that I've done a lot of research in the music associated with the historically associated with the Jewish community in the North End, and so it's really an important story. And then how do you express that in the school, which it has been stated in some forms, though I haven't really researched it to be able to say this definitively. But there was a large influx of Jews Eastern European Jews into the North End. And there was some conflict around 1902, including a mass walkout of Jewish students from a particular school. And that was right about the time when the Wheeler School was built. And there's speculation that it was basically a school in which they could incorporate most of the Jewish students to lessen the conflicts. And there's also, the schools were over full too. So, and a lot of the people in the neighborhood spoke Yiddish. So a Yiddish song was an appropriate way for the students at the school currently to acknowledge that. So would you be my crankist here? And so this is but it's finding the song that's actually usable, and that's tricky. So start cranking, and no, that's the one. Yeah, and will it work? Yeah. Okay. Now this is a pretty fast crank. So this is a song, Tumbala Laika.
Oh my God. I can also, before he starts, this time my sons learned this song from Brian, and he and his friends were playing in my yard and walking just side by side, 2 second grade boys, like they were old men, just walking around singing this.
And when they're also singing La Bastrang too, at least a simplified version of La Bastrang, or Somalieto. So makes me very happy. Okay, so here's what the heck is this? And so this is a way of saying that interesting alphabets that aren't immediately obviously English or Roman alphabets. This has always been in the North End. I've got posters back here that were from the neighborhood, in Yiddish. So this is part of the tradition, and the fact that you currently see a Nepali sign or in the neighborhood that's not something new. Maybe it didn't happen from 1950 through 1980, but that's basically what has always happened any other time. So Tumbala Laika, a song which is arguably associated with the neighborhood in Burlington, definitely associated with Montreal and other interrelated communities. So crank away, and please sing along. And so this is, oh, by the way, so I did this cranky, and I had my daughter who's illustrated, and she just did some sort of random association imagery. But the point of this is to make a song in Yiddish work for kids who can't immediately pick up Yiddish. So everyone did the chorus. Tumbala, 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 laika, tumbala, 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 laika, tumbala, laika, spielbala, laika, tumbala, laika, freilich soll sein. Okay, so that's pretty teachable. And then we get to the verses, which I didn't expect the kids to learn. They just were supposed to hear the sound of a language. They got it instantly. They just jumped right on and were singing. It's like, you guys already know Yiddish. So, steht am Vogel, steht am Pracht und Pracht die ganze Nacht. Wehmen zu nehmen und nicht verschämen. Wehmen zu nehmen und nicht verschämen. More Hebrew characters. Tumbala, 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 laika, tumbala, 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 laika, tumbala, laika, spielbala, laika, tumbala, laika, freilich soll sein. Mädel, Mädel, Kabel bei dir feigen, Bosken wachsen, wachsen und feigen. Bosken brennen und mit euch fällen, Bosken denken, weinen und quälen. Tumbala, 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 laika, tumbala, 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 laika, tumbala, laika, spielbala, laika, tumbala, laika, freilich soll sein. So we didn't actually delve into the storyline that much, but it's pretty confusing anyways. But so it's basically just an exercise in singing words with just an associative meaning. You know, when you sort of, the image in their head was more important than the literal words. Na shel boker, vos darfst du legen, a Stein kann wachsen, wachsen und legen. Liebe kann brennen und in euch perlen, a Herz kann wecken, weinen und quälen. And now we're all completely proficient Yiddish readers now. Oh, and by the way, okay, here's the joke about crankies. Yiddish and Hebrew letters are read this way. So, presenting a simultaneous English and Hebrew is just like too cranky. Okay, so tumbala, 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 laika, tumbala, 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 laika, tumbala, laika, spielbala, laika, tumbala, laika, freilich soll sein. So there you go. Thank you very much, and I think we are completely out of time. And I'm happy to chat endlessly about this. Just realize this is a pilot program, and so we're sort of developing it as we go, and there's a lot that's undeveloped. But hopefully it's working out. And a lot of supportive material, which you're welcome to look at, but it's all in kind of rough, very rough form. Thank you.